Okay, we'll do a few of these. One thing I want to point out is some of these problems, there's really only one on this assignment, but coming up they'll have others. They have angle of depression and angle of elevation. An angle of depression is they use a lot of times in airplane problems. If they say the angle of depression is like 20 degrees, that means they're looking straight out and down. So depression is out and down, so this would be an angle of depression problem. Angle of elevation is when you're on the ground looking up. So it's the same thing, you're looking out and up. So an angle of elevation of 20 would form that angle. Now angle of depression and angle of elevation are always the same, because what kind of angles are those called? Not corresponding.
Interior,
alternate interior, which are congruent.
Good job, Darren.
So the first 6, you got to find the value of each variable. So they're not having us find the missing angle yet. Eventually you will. So all we got to do is find x and y. So for 28, here's the angle. 6 is opposite. So now you just got to choose. Do you want to find x or y?
Y.
X.
X?
Y.
I'll find x. X is the hypotenuse. So since it's opposite and hypotenuse, which trig function? Sine.
Sine.
Sine of your angle, 37, equals the opposite side, which is 6, over the hypotenuse, which is x.
So then what's it do again?
So remember, when the x is on the bottom,
you can just flop her.
what happens is these two end up switching positions. So x equals 6 divided by the sine of 37. Now when you do this, remember you got to press equals. 6 divided by sine of 37.
9.9.
9.96, which we're rounding these to the 10th.
9.1.
10.
9.10.
9.96. The 9 would round up to a 10, which means you'd have to round that one up one more. So it rounds to just 10. Now, in order to find y, you could do another trig function. But since I know two sides, the quickest way is to do the Pythagorean theorem. So what you do,
Gel pencil.
yep. If it's the hypotenuse and leg, you just take the hypotenuse squared minus the leg squared and then square root it, and y turns out to be 8.
What?
10 squared minus 6 squared is 8. Okay, for 29, on 29, here's the angle, 34 is the hypotenuse. So that means you're not going to use tangent. It's got to be sine or cosine, because those have the hypotenuse in it. So which one do you want to find, T or S? S. S is adjacent to 23. So adjacent and hypotenuse is the cosine function. So the cosine of 23 equals adjacent, which is S, over hypotenuse, which is 34. So again, you just get the S by itself. Since it's on top, it's divided by, that means you multiply to get rid of it. So you take 34 times the cosine of 23, 31.29, so 31.3. So S is 31.3. Now again, you have an option. In order to find T, if I use the trig function, T is opposite and 34 is hypotenuse, so I'd use sine. But the quickest thing to always do is use the Pythagorean theorem. Since you know two sides, and one of them is the hypotenuse, you would take 34 squared, the hypotenuse, minus the leg squared, and then square root it.
Minus?
Yeah, remember if it's a leg and an hypotenuse, you subtract them. If it's the two legs, you know you add them.
Shit.
13.27, so that would be 13.3. Okay? So, I want to point out these three, you got to find the area, which is area of a triangle.
Is base times height divided by 2.
Right. Now, look at these triangles.
Yeah.
Does anything stand out to you?
They're
They're all right
base.
triangles.
They
They're all
don't
right.
have the base.
They're all right triangles.
Does anything stand out to you?
50, 60, 30, 70,
They're special triangles.
Yeah.
So you can use these on there, or if you remember the rules, you can use the shortcut.
So
How would you?
that's 2.
If the hypotenuse is 4, what's each leg?
Two.
Huh?
4 squared to 2. No, it's not. It's
Half
2
the
squared.
square is 4.
It's 2
Half the hypotenuse times the square root of 2. So the base times the height, remember base and height have to form a 90. This times this divided by 2. Again, round all these to the nearest 10. So here you can use the rules for 30, 60, 90, if you remember them.
So it'd be 2 squared to 2 divided by 2.
2 squared to 2 times 2 squared to 2 divided by 2.